What is up, guys? Welcome to a new video. Normally a few days before the next patch we take a look at who I think is going to be the best moving into that patch, but this time around there are like a few bigger but fewer changes, so we're going to focus on them. So there are going to be 3 big nerfs I want to look at and then a buff as well. Remember, this is a little bit smaller deliberately because next patch should be huge from what we know already about the AD changes, let alone everything else that will be there. Plus apparently Riot are having like a big conference, so everyone is busy with that. We're just going to jump straight in. So the first and biggest change I think though this patch is going to be to SONA. Now after the kind of mini rework SONA had, she's been like crazy strong, right? Even after the hotfix nerf, she's had a 55.5% win rate according to champion.gg this patch, which is mad with how popular she is too. Like anything over 53% is considered like top tier and probably going to get nerfed, and normally win rates go down when more people play her, but not with SONA. I've been saying this for a long time already, but the problem isn't really her heal, it's kind of the cooldown reduction on her ultimate that lets her spam it over and over when you've added in like the new healing items. Now on the PBE right now, they're nerfing her move speed again, so the AP ratio is down to 6% instead of 8% per 100 AP, and his self movement speed is down 3% per rank as well. The big one really though is the R ability cooldown reduction changed to 10, 25 and 40% from 20%, 30 and 40. That is actually going to be a big deal for like how strong she is early to mid game in my opinion. Like it's actually half what it is right now. That's a pretty big change. So what it's actually going to mean is like less spam heals in the early kind of team fights, less effective but also not as good in like an all-in fight. So constant poke, like going in and out and stuff, taking short trades isn't really going to be affected at all. It's kind of like the full-on fight that will actually be affected. In a big lane fight, like around level 7 maybe, like around that kind of level, these are going to be very rough by the way, but it'll be something like your Q will be half a second longer and your W and E about a second longer, kind of. That is not exact at all, but having to wait an extra second can actually add up in a big fight in my opinion. Now I was going to talk about how like this will shift the bot lane meta a little bit more, but actually what we're going to do is talk about all of the changes first, then we'll go into like an overview for each role with new picks that I think are going to be better moving into 6.16. So the next change is to IRELIA. Finally, she's actually getting nerfed. I mean, it's kind of situational, but in my opinion it is a nerf unless you're split pushing. Now honestly, you have to give props to Riot really, because this is a clever way to nerf her without actually like bumming her completely into the ground. So if you main IRELIA, you don't really have to worry about too much. They've aimed everything at her passive mages, so like the range it activates is now down to 1000 from 1400, which is kind of big. The reduction of disables though is changed. Instead of just being like per champ around, it's going to be based on your allies versus enemies. Basically it's going to be like if you have a numbers advantage, so like you're 2v1 in a gank or something, you get 0%, like you get no reduction at all anymore. If it's even, so it's like 2v2 or 3v3, 4v4, then you're going to get 10%, and if you're outnumbered, you'll get 25 to 40% based on your level. Now early game, this doesn't really make a difference honestly, like it's going to be the same 10% in lane, and if you get ganked, it's still going to be 25%. Actually, if it becomes a 2v2 though, so like if your jungler joins in as well, before you would have got 25% because there were 2 enemies, now you'd actually get 0. That is a pretty hefty change. This is where it is going to suck though in like full-on team fights in my opinion. So before it was 40%, right now if it's 5v5 it'll actually be 10%, and only 40% if they have more enemies. That sucks so bad, like when jumping into an actual full-on team fight. But the good thing is if you're super strong and you split push, late game you'd actually get like 40% if you're outnumbered. So like say you're a 1v1, right, you then get ganked afterwards, you get 40% instead of 25 before, and that actually kind of might help, I guess. Honestly, this is pretty bad though for a team fight. I'm trying to make it sound good, but honestly it isn't. Like 10% instead of 40% in a team fight, that is not cool. That is considering it's even too. Like if you have more allies around, then it's going to be 0 and they can stun you and just run away. It's one of those things where you look at this and you think, actually I could probably make this work to my advantage if I use the range properly, but honestly, like who is going to do that in the heat of actual fight? Nobody is going to plan a team fight to where they stand to pinpoint accuracy like that. Ultimately, I do think it's a decent nerf. Your options are really going to be split push, and it might be better anyway. Like the problem I guess with that though is it's hard to coordinate that in solo queue, but pre-made you could be better at it, I guess, or at least like the same. The other option is to just crap on your lane opponent like she does anyway, like get a massive lead and one-shot people with your burst so your passive doesn't even matter. To be honest, you're going to feel this change in more like even or behind games, I think, rather than when you're ahead. It's not really going to make much of a difference. Alright, so third is a VIKTOR ultimate nerf, and this was pretty expected I think, but I have this little feeling like this is aimed more at the Rylai's interaction. Basically, it's the move speed of his ultimate which seems weird to balance if it's not not aimed at him abusing Rylai's with it. You probably know by now though that whenever I talk about Viktor, I always say Rylai's is overpowered on him because it makes hitting like his second part of his laser really easy and it's harder to escape his ult. So anyway, the actual changes are your maximum speed of the ult is down and the minimum speed is slightly up though. It starts to slow down though at 300 units instead of 350, so sooner, and it reaches like your minimum speed at 900 units, not 950. That is a lot of changes to basically say his ult is going to be slower now and not get as far away before it starts to get slower initially. This could actually be a really big ball ache to play and get used to again. Like, it's going to be easier to run away from, and in my opinion makes Rylai's even more common. Like, I think you actually have to buy that on him even if you weren't already. The thing is, like, to me at least, you kind of bait Viktor's ult, you run, you come back, and he hasn't got that cooldown for a while. That's probably the easiest way to beat him, and now I think that's actually going to be easier really. You're still going to do an insane amount of damage, and I know I say this a little bit about a few different changes, but maybe we're actually seeing the Malzahar treatment. You know how they did this really weird and kind of small change to see how it affects him, and then next patch he gets slapped with the nerf bat really hard? My good guess is that this will be the same kind of thing in my opinion. Like, remember, we're getting too close to worlds now, so they're going to balance it for competitive, and Viktor is one of the strongest and most reliable mid lanes at the moment. It would not surprise me like at all if this was a test and nerf for next patch with bigger changes, but honestly that's just like an educated guess. Like, I do not know that for sure, it is just a guess. I did say this patch is super small, but I have to mention this one before we get into the other roles, like the overview, otherwise it's not going to make sense. The Nautilus ult change where it's going to stun along the line is actually still there, so it's most likely going to make it to live. Basically the change means that if you ult someone at the back of the fight now, not only is you going to stun that target, but everyone it hits for 2 seconds as well. It used to just knock them to the side for half a second, so that is a pretty big deal now, like a pretty big jump from half a second to 2 seconds. Now I know we've talked about this a lot, so to just sum up why I actually think, you're now going to crap on mage supports even more, and this is a very big reminder that he's also an awesome kill lane support, so we're probably going to see him more. It might be worth actually kind of suffering like top or jungle just to be this massive problem in team fights, and there's very little counterplay to this at all. Like, I think you could win team fights by itself, which is pretty silly in my opinion. Anyway, so let's go into each role and just highlight a few things to round up as we head into 6.16. This is kind of the traditional thing I do with each patch, look at the best champions moving into the patch and who you should be playing. So for the top lane, Gangplank is still probably overall the best. Like, the Armor Pen build brought way more reliability to him, I think. It kind of spikes earlier into the game now, and you're able to impact the map better. There is no pressure really because you're just going to farm and you have a strong mid game, a very good late game, and you're very good at carrying from a big distance, which is like perfect for rank queues. I don't think Irelia is really ban worthy anymore either after these changes, but it depends on the matchup and the lane specifically. If you're playing a champion that struggles against her and you're probably going to feed her, then like you're still going to get boned the same as normal. Like, she snowballs very hard and it's not easy to recover a losing lane from her. I always do loads of research on the patch and stuff, like looking up different stats, and I'd actually say watch out for Cassiopeia this patch. Like, she's very good versus Bruiser's top because of the constant poke and pressure. She is very strong mid as well, but top has seen a massive push more recently because of like the meta shift, I guess, especially in Korea. She's one of the best at the moment, so people will probably catch on more, and it's actually a lot easier to play than people think since the rework. For mid lane, Viktor maybe not as popular, but I still think he's going to be top tier for now at least, even though maybe we're going to see this bigger nerf next patch. Rylai's, in my opinion, is going to be cool now if it wasn't already. Like, you need that kind of slow utility to kite and make your ultimate more deadly. Really, you're just like the safest thing you could ever play. Like, it works in any single matchup. You might want to practice other stuff though if I am right about the future nerfs. Anivia and Ari are going to be like the go-to staple mids at the moment. Like, you're good and relevant in any game no matter what is happening. You have like early damage to snowball the game, but pressure a lot late game as well. LeBlanc is someone that I never really talk about honestly because she's been relevant. It depends on the player's skill level, but I think she might actually get better now. Viktor was never that fun of a matchup unless you played it perfectly, and now it might actually be easier because you can bait his ultimate, you can run away, and then you have lane control for a while. You do snowball very hard though. It's still very good mid to late game because of your new items, and you're good versus more passive lanes, which is what we're seeing more, especially with tower first blood. Just roam bot lane, kill them, get the tower, and it's a big lead for your team. For the support, Sona is still one of the best, but maybe not quite as overpowered anymore. Like, I think there's more window to punish her and fight her. That's basically what the changes are doing in my opinion, and that's going to lead into Nautilus as well. But like any kill lane, like Braum or Blitzcrank, it's less risky to pick these now, and there's more chance to do well and get a lead, I think. Like, Nautilus is just a beast though, right? You take Ignite and you go ham as balls. Like, you will win so many lanes, you'll be very surprised. Soraka and Janna are still going to be just behind Sona for me for the same reasons. Like, the new healing items are dumb and they're just so good at protecting everyone, especially like an Ashe and Jhin. For AD carry, not much is going to change here really until next patch. So Ashe and Jhin are still the top two, I think, and Jinx is very strong at the moment, but not really talked about too much. Kind of underrated, I guess, but people know she's strong, they just don't talk about her. Sivir is going to be better this patch as well because of her ability to get tower first by quicker than basically anyone else. Like, she can activate her W, push it in, and she will get these towers and that extra bonus gold. Twitch and Tristana though are better going into 616, and I'm not entirely sure why, but the game is lasting a little bit longer and these two have a ton of damage packed into their kit, so that is probably why. Finally, the jungle. We still have all of the usual culprits who are popular, Graves, Lee, Gragas, Elise, but it's more like mid to late game focused junglers that are better at the moment. So Skarner is legit taking a dump on high elo in every single region right now. Like, Warrior into Triforce is broken. Like, it's so much burst damage combined with too much utility. Your stun, ult, speed up, it is not cool to play against. Bloodrazor Jax is another one, the new kind of hyper carry jungler, actually replacing like a Yi and Shyvana, I guess. He has a silly amount of damage with the new items, but it does take some time to power up in the game. The difference between him and like a Yi is that he can be more effective earlier into the game. Finally, Fiddlesticks, Kha'Zix, and Mumu are also doing very well, so keep an eye on them to probably become more popular as we get into 616. They're all three of them very reliable carry junglers. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the changes coming in 616, but as always, let's go to the robots.